for the fifth meeting of the House Standing Committee on State Government. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Decker?
Here.
Representative Duplessis? Representative Flood?
Present, Annex Office.
Thank you. Representative Graham?
Here.
Representative Heath?
Here in person.
Representative Hevron?
Present in the room.
Representative Johnson?
Present in the room.
Representative Maddox?
Present.
Representative Mentor? Representative Nemus?
Here.
Representative Smith?
Here.
Representative Stevenson? Representative Tate? Representative Tipton? Representative Upchurch?
Here.
Representative Wheatley?
Here.
Representative Bowling?
Here.
Representative Bratcher?
Present in the room.
Representative Miller?
Present, and Representative Tipton just walked in, so we can count him as physically present. I'd like to remind everyone in the audience, if you want to speak on a bill, the sign-up sheet is back there. Get someone's attention that you have signed it and want to speak. I'd like to remind everyone, no signs, turn your cell phones off. If you're online, mute unless you want to vote or ask a question, please. We're going to pass over the first bill and move on to House Bill 436, sponsored by Speaker Pro Tem Meade. Welcome, sir.
Motion on the committee sub.
A motion on the committee sub. All in favor of the sub, signify by saying aye.
Mr. Chairman,
I do want it.
I'm
Yes, sir.
With this committee sub, before we vote on it, can we at least know what's in the committee sub?
Well, let me back up a second, and I'm remiss in asking if anyone had a guest they would like to introduce. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Today I'm honored to introduce our colleague's son, Jason White, is here today, and it's Richard's son with his grandsons and his son-in-law. And if he'll stand up, I'd like for everybody to welcome them here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, and I apologize for not doing that out of order. Speaker Pro Tem Meade, would you like to talk about what was in the sub, which we have just, we're about to vote on. So is there anything you'd like to tell us about what's in the sub?
Very quickly, and I appreciate that, Representative Graham, for asking what's in it. What we're doing here is, as you remember, through the COVID pandemic, we allowed the boards and commissions to go to a 2-year licensing period. We're putting that into statute for the auctioneers to say that they can do their licensing biannually, and also that the $150 is still per year, but they can collect the $300 for the 2-year period. So we're not changing any fees, just making sure they can collect it on a 2-year period. We have to carry, as auctioneers, a license card in our pockets at all time when we're doing auctions. This just says that you can keep it electronically. And then we're giving subpoena power to them because we're having an issue right now. There actually are 15 boards that are non-medical that have subpoena power in our state right now, 15 that are our medical, so 30 boards have subpoena power. And we're having a lot of folks go out and are auctioning property off that are not licensed, and that can create a detriment to the public to some extent, because we also sell guns, we sell ammunition, we sell alcohol at times through auction, and there are some very strict laws that go along with that. These folks are not abiding by those laws, so what we're doing is giving them the ability to bring those folks in, because a lot of them are saying, you have no authority over me, I'm not coming in, I'm not testifying for you, I'm not giving you any information. So we're giving them that ability to do that. And then if they see fit, then they can carry on the charges to the proper authorities after that. Also, we're giving the final thing that we're doing is just giving the board the ability to suspend a license during an emergency meeting with the board if someone is doing something that may be detrimental to the public. And so that's really what the bill does.
Great. Are there any more questions on the sub before we go to a voice vote? All in favor of the sub, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Sub is before us.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion on the bill. would you or your lovely guest like to say anything?
I think we all know when to shut up.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary, please call the roll. Yes, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, Leader Mead, if you would perhaps by any chance want to do, in your best auctioneer voice, a bidding for the votes on this before we start?
I think I'm good on that. I'm not going to buy votes in this committee.
Perhaps next time. Thank you.
Seeing no other seeking recognition, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Bowling. Representative Bratcher.
Yes.
Representative Decker.
Yes.
Representative Duplessis. Representative Flood.
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Graham.
Yes.
Representative Heath.
Yes.
Representative Heverin.
Yes.
Representative Johnson.
Yes.
Representative Maddox.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes, and I'd like to register my presence.
Representative Nemus.
Yes.
Representative Smith.
Yes.
Representative Stevenson. Representative Tate.
Yes, and I'd like to register my presence, please.
Representative Tipton.
Yes.
Representative Upchurch.
Yes.
Representative Wheatley.
Yes.
Representative Miller.
Yes, matter passes with favorable expression. Same two shall pass on the floor. Congratulations and thank you for bringing it.
Thank
to
you,
us.
Mr. Chairman.
And continuing our all-star lineup, we're going to go back to House Bill 10, sponsored by Speaker David Osborne.
She gave us.
And there will not be a sub on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. There is not a sub on this. There was some discussions around a sub, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. But House Bill 10 addresses something that President Stivers and our respective leaderships have been discussing really over the last couple of years, and that is the process of pre-filing bills. From an historical perspective, the pre-filing of bills is basically a relic from when we had biennial sessions, and literally the only way that the public could get a copy of a pre-file or a bill was to come to the Capitol and pick up a printed copy. It was the only way that somebody had access to it. In the technological era that we now are in, it's very easy to access information. The public does not come to the Capitol to get their information. They get it online. And the special designation of a pre-filed bill carries with it a connotation that it has cleared some type of hurdle, that it has gone through some additional vetting, that it has met some type of standard other than other pieces of working legislation. And if you'll actually look at the bill, page 3 and 4, that the stricken language, from a historical perspective, originally pre-filed bills, the way you actually pre-filed a bill was the committee had to vote to pre-file a bill, and that's actually the process has evolved administratively over that period of time. Since that period of time, but it actually took an affirmative vote of the House members of an interim joint committee to pre-file a bill, and it actually did meet an additional standard. And I've seen over the last couple of years, and I think we all have, that when you have a special designation, I've seen a lot of well-intended and well-conceived legislation that has died quickly because of preconceived notions. Because when you put something out now, it is immediately available to hundreds of thousands of people. And with the thought of it being a pre-filed bill, then everybody's forced to take an immediate position on it, as opposed to a working copy, a working draft of a bill where people are more invited to participate in the process, the development process. So what President Stivers and I have kind of settled on is the idea of directing LRC, and that was the part that we were trying to figure out if it needed a sub or not. whether we needed to specifically direct in legislation LRC to do it, or whether we, as the co-chairs of LRC, could direct the LRC to develop a working bill section of our website, where people that wanted to have bills out for public consumption, for public input, for committee hearings, for interim committee hearings, could actually put those things in the public space, alerting the public that these are working drafts. These are not final products in any way, shape, or form. And I think it will make for a better legislative process in the long run. So that's kind of the essence of it. Steve?
Would your lovely guests like to add anything?
I just keep waiting for somebody to make a motion.
We have a motion and a second on the bill. Do we have questions or comments? Representative Graham?
So, Mr. Speaker, what you're saying, this is going to be an easier process in terms of how we do this, or what kind of impact will it have on our, in terms of, this pre-filing? Will it have any effect on that? I understand, and I kind of agree with you,
right,
that sometimes when you file that bill, you find out about other information and you need to make those changes.
Yeah, Representative Graham, I don't know that it will necessarily make it an easier process, but I think it will make it a more clear process as to where we are in the process of moving legislation. I think that, again, when something is pre-filed, I think it comes with the connotation that it is kind of somewhat in a final product. And I think if we make it clear that these are working drafts, that this is a work product, certainly if someone wants to continue to keep, just as they do now, if someone wants to keep their legislation private, then this would require a legislator to say, no, I want this in the public space. I feel like it's well baked enough to get it to the public space. But I think it makes it more clear. I can't say that I think it makes it easier, but I do think it makes it more clear to the public.
Okay.
I would add, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
You may.
As we deal in the procedure and the process, for the clerk's office, the way it currently is right now, on day one, we have literally hundreds of bills that automatically get assigned a number, and they may not be ready to go on day one. So this would also relieve some of that burden on the front end of all that extra burden that's put on the clerk's office on day one, that we're literally, like next year, we'll also be dealing with new members being sworn in, plus all these pre-file bills, and not to mention the pre-file bills from retiring members that currently you, Representative Miller, would still have the ability to pre-file, and that's just really truly a burden from an administrative aspect of the legislative process.
Very good. Representative Flood, please unmute.
Thank you, Chairman.
There we go.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Bill. I'm wanting to understand a subtlety, because one of the ways I know that pre-filed bills help us is if we are faced with a situation that arises in our constituents or in our districts where we need to respond in an emergency situation, if you will, and you file a bill to say, I'm on this. So in that sense, that doesn't change. I, as an individual, can still do that, file a bill, but it's in effect what you're saying, sir, is that when it comes to opening day, the bill I've put in wouldn't translate immediately into a bill number. I would still have to then take that bill in whatever current form it is and then file it officially on day one.
Correct. And there may be, and I know it's happened several times, after bills have been filed, pre-filed, subsequent changes have been made that ultimately don't show up on day one. They will, they will require a committee sub. And so again, I think that we put people in a position of having to decide on what they see, the information they see, and that isn't always the best information available. And this at least alerts them that there's many potential changes. I know that we all like to think that everybody understands what we do and how legislation moves, but the general public generally does not. And so I think that when the public sees something and they are forced to make a decision about whether or not they're for or against something, it makes them do that as opposed to maybe compelling them to provide input.
Last follow-up question, sir, briefly. So you used a good example. You said if say I'm here through the end of the year, but if I decided at the end of to pre-file a bill and then I'm not reelected, what happens to those bills that are pre-filed by someone who's not returning?
They go away. They just simply simply go away. In this particular case, if it were a working draft, then you could easily withdraw as a sponsor and have someone else file the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Speaker.
Very good. Representative Heavern.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a comment. Mr. Speaker, I greatly appreciate this bill. Whenever I came in on a special election in 2019, 2 days before my election, the gentleman from Jefferson 33 dropped a medical marijuana bill that was 70 pages long. And that was actually a hot topic of conversation during my campaign. And so I was then, who knew that I'd be mad at Jason Nemes before I even knew him? It should have been a real indicator of what was coming. But it really put a lot of pressure.
The gentleman from Jefferson 33.
Hey, you don't have permission.
You can't call me by name.
Anyways, back to the story. It put a lot of pressure on me as a new candidate. You know, I'd read language before, just working at the Kentucky State Treasury. I'd read bills, but really it wasn't a topic of conversation I was ready to make an answer on, because I didn't have the full conversation of the caucus and to be able to speak to members on it. And so I just think that really protects a lot of people from having to make decisions. And so I greatly appreciate that, just having had that experience from the gentleman from Jefferson 33. So thank you very much for bringing this bill.
Very good. Representative Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for bringing this bill. The way I look at it, I learn something every single minute that I'm here. I think I've told you that before. And the way I see this bill is it protects people like me and like Representative Heavern when we're new. It really does. I have fallen victim to co-sponsoring bills too soon and pre-filing bills too soon. And I see that people who are more seasoned know better. So somehow I see this as a protection of new members from themselves, and perhaps that's not the best thing to do, protect us from ourselves, but I see the wisdom of controlling the narrative a little bit better. It helps our constituents, too, for the reasons you've stated, so thank you.
Thank you. Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaker, Leader Rudy. I'm around the column, Mr. Speaker, but I'm here. I do see this potentially maybe reducing the number of committee subs we deal with, but I just want one point of clarification, if I may. Is if we pass this legislation, you as the Speaker and President Stivers as co-chairs of the LRC, you believe you will be able to direct the LRC to come up with a system that would allow these unofficial bills, pre-drafted bills, to be outmade to the public. Is that correct?
That is our latest understanding. We actually had staff meeting with LRC staff yesterday to confirm that. They're doing a little bit of additional research. If they find out that we do need to direct it, then we will. But I think the added flexibility of not actually having that in statute will be helpful. Will allow them to adjust the process as they need to.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Bowling?
Yes.
Representative Bratcher?
Yes.
Representative Decker?
Yes.
Representative Duplessis? Representative Flood?
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Graham?
Yes.
Representative Heath?
Yes.
Representative Heverin?
Yes.
Representative Johnson?
Yes.
Representative Maddox?
May I explain my vote, Mr. Chairman?
You may, absolutely.
Yes, I'm going to vote no, but I'm very interested in the remarks that Representative Tipton provided in terms of the fact that we're a part-time legislature, and I would like for there to be some kind of mechanism to have that dialogue with the public about what we're working on. Sure. So, thank you, yes.
Representative Mentor?
Yes.
Representative Nemes?
Yes.
Representative Smith? Yes. Representative Stevenson?
Yes, may I explain my vote?
You may.
I too have a concern about the public being able to engage. And so I'm going to vote yes with the understanding that we make sure we make it easy for them to engage, because right now they are used to going online and looking for bills, and anything we develop should allow them to go online and see what we're doing.
Representative Tate.
May I explain my vote, please?
May.
I'm certainly going to vote yes. One of the things that I love about this process is the historical, the process about the General Assembly is the historical piece about this. It's so nice to walk in this and know that the people that came before us actually created this process. And I think this process has been in place since 1984. At the same time, I understand that we had the opportunity to get smarter. And so I appreciate you bringing this, and I look forward to learning more about it as we move along. So thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Tipton.
Yes.
Representative Upchurch.
Yes.
Representative Wheatley.
Briefly explain, and I'm a yes vote on this, and this brings the legislation more into light, quicker, less committee subs, so that less surprises, and I think it's a great idea. So, yes.
Representative Miller.
Yes. Matter passes with favorable expression. Congratulations, Speaker and Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Our next star is Representative Baker, House Bill 334. And there's no sub on the bill, so Representative Baker, lead us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If this bill looks familiar, it's because you did see it last year. Last year's House Bill 454. It is a reorg for Executive Branch Ethics Commission. This bill does a couple simple things. Number one, it increases the penalty for persons who attempt to bribe or otherwise corrupt this body, or someone who's a disobedient witness. It increases the fine for that from $1,000 to $15,000. It allows the Attorney General to prosecute those cases in the place where the accused person resides or in Franklin County. Number two, on the reorg part, the current commission is made up of 5 members. Those 5 members are appointed by the governor. The governor has the sole authority to do that. This would expand that from 5 members to 7 members. The governor would still have 2 appointments. Each of the other constitutional officers would each have 1 appointment. Those other constitutional officers, they fall under the Executive Branch Ethics Commission, so it seems only right to have them as part of that. Under this bill, the terms of the existing members would terminate on the effective date of the bill, and new members would be appointed as listed in subsection 2. And then on page number 3, it talks about the how they're dealt with the complaints, how those findings are made, and that's pretty much it. It's very simple.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion on the bill and a second, but we have a question from Representative Flood.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Baker, the question I have first is why, with the addition of the executive branch officers, why exclude the lieutenant governor?
Well, each of the members on here, the governor has 2 appointments. Each of the other people on here are elected by the people. And so the governor is elected by the people. He or she gets 2 appointments. And then each of the other 5 members, they get 1 appointment.
Follow up, Chairman.
Would you like a follow up?
Yes, thank you so much, Chairman. Sir, our lieutenant governor is also elected by the people and serves in the executive branch and is an independent person running for office these days after changes y'all have made. So why is she not listed as somebody who gets to be involved in executive branch ethics?
Well, Representative Flood, perhaps that conversation could be between the governor and the lieutenant governor as to who that second appointment is. If you give the lieutenant governor an additional appointment, you end up with 8 people, which is a nice even number, but that doesn't work out well for tiebreakers and when you have decisions to be made. So that's the reason it is why it is.
All right. Last question, sir.
Sure, one
Just
more.
for the that answer was insufficient, but moving on. Let's do this. The last thing I need to understand is, it got real vague at the end. You said require the executive branch ethics to make findings for complaints and then to make public whether it's what its purpose was. Tell me more about that particular piece. What are you asking the Ethics Commission to make public?
So, for a complaint filed by someone other than the Ethics Commission, this is on page number 3. For each complaint filed by a person other than the Commission or a member of the Commission shall make a finding as to whether the complaint is well grounded in fact, warranted by existing law, filed for a good faith argument or reason, and not for any improper purpose, such as political advantage, to harass or embarrass a person or persons, to cause delays, or to increase the cost of adjudicating the case before the Commission. Basically, if a member of the community or someone else outside the Commission, if they want to lodge a complaint, then the Commission itself would look into that to make sure it's well grounded and it's something that's worth taking up.
That's correct. That's their job. So are you just restating their job here, or I'm confused about why we need that language?
Well, in working with the drafter, that's the language we arrived at, ma'am.
All right, insufficient answer. Thank you so much.
Representative Minter.
I have a quick question. I mean, when I looked at this, the first thing I thought of was, yeah, I'm here. When I looked at this for the first time, the first thing I thought of was, well, yeah, it's another board reorganization bill. But the first thing I thought about was the Fair Board. And that's currently been held unconstitutional by Franklin Circuit Court, that you can't do that. And that the governor, should have the majority under the Constitution of appointments on a board. So how is this bill constitutional given the current state of case law in the Fair Board case?
The courts will decide the constitutionality of this board as they do others if this is challenged. I'm sorry. But as it is, I think that we would all agree that you should not have one person appointing all the members of an ethics commission that oversees their office. And if someone else is going to be bound by that, they should also have a say in it to make it across the board. And this works whether it's Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter if it's the current governor, another governor down the road. Those proper things need to be in place.
Representative Graham.
You kind of answered the first question that I was going to ask you in terms of the reasons for taking these appointments away from the governor. Was there any discussion about extending the appointments, but still allowing the governor to get recommendations from the other executive officers, for them to recommend who they would want on the board, and then he could decide whether or not to put them on that board, or he would accept them and still give them a voice on the board? Was there any discussions in regards to that direction?
No, sir, there was not.
So there was no discussion with the current administration in regards to the appointments?
To keep these current appointments as they are? No, sir, there was not. No.
So how long have the individuals who are going to be replaced, how long have they been on the board? Do you know? Have they just been appointed since the governor has been elected? I don't know that, and that's why I'm asking.
And to be honest with you, sir, I don't know the dates of each of the appointments.
Well, let me just say this. I'm concerned about all of these changes in terms of the appointment to boards and commissions, of which all the governors previous have had that responsibility, and we have, in terms, approved. Many of those people over in the Senate, they approve them. I just think that this is tramping on two things: separation of powers and checks and balances. And I think as we go down this path, for right now, it may seem it's okay, but it's not going to be okay, because the system has been in place and it has worked. And I have some concerns about us as a General Assembly overstepping or going too far out in terms of taking responsibility away from the Chief Executive Officer of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And I keep using that Chief Executive Officer because he is the highest elected official in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. and certain responsibilities have been put on him outside of the other executives. And he's governor because people are looking for his leadership, his guidance, and his recommendations in terms of moving the state forward. And I just have a problem with us, since he has been elected governor, taking away those responsibilities that all governors previously have had. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to.
You're quite welcome. Are there any other questions? Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Baker, I was trying to look through the rest of the bill. Are members of the Executive Branch Ethics Committee subject to Senate confirmation? I saw no reference to it in the bill.
To be honest with you, sir, I have not been part of that process.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Stevenson.
A couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
The first question I have is on page 3. It says the commission shall not be reorganized except by statute. What is the purpose of of us doing this reorganization and then putting that language in?
It's to ensure continuity. If anyone could reorganize that, or if it could be redone under the executive branch somewhere down the road, then you find yourself right back in the same situation. You know, when we put up guardrails, oftentimes we think of safety for various people, and sometimes it's the very person within that office. So guardrails are healthy, and we want to make sure that we have that. So it's to ensure that we just have that one strict process for that.
Thank you. Guardrails are healthy. The other question is, this is an executive branch ethics commission. Did the governor ask for these changes?
I have not spoken with the governor.
Okay, so you are presenting this without consultation with the person it affects.
Ma'am, I arrived in January last year. I haven't seen him once.
Oh, did you ask to see him to discuss the reorganization of his powers?
No, ma'am. Any piece of legislation that we have worked on, I haven't consulted with him at all.
Okay. And my last question is this. On page 3, you allow this commission to be appointed by other officers except the lieutenant governor. And you also say they can decide whether or not to take a complaint if they find that the complaint is for political purpose, harassment, or to embarrass a person. Can you say that this bill has nothing to do with a political ploy, a complaint against the governor, or to diminish his powers?
No one has contacted me with a complaint against the governor that has encouraged me to do this.
Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very quickly to speak on this bill, and I just want to point out that the conversation about the reorganization of boards is a valid conversation that we should have, but this is the Ethics Commission. This is the Ethics Board, right?
Correct.
For the executive branch. And to have the governor, one person, appoint all of the members of a board who are responsible for overseeing ethics for that executive branch, even if there is never a single situation of impropriety, just the appearance or the possible appearance of impropriety, by having the executive officer pick all the people on the ethics board is challenging. It's problematic, and this is a solution for that. Now, we can talk about all the other boards we want, but this is the ethics board. And so I support this. I think it's an opportunity to provide additional checks and balances and provide some protection against impropriety or that appearance thereof for the executive branch. So I thank you for bringing the bill.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If everybody could be brief, Representative Nemes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to note, my friend, the lady from Warren, is correct that the court has determined that preliminarily that the bill that we passed on the Fair Board is unconstitutional. That was a Jefferson County Circuit Judge, not Franklin. It's on appeal, and the judge actually granted the stay so that the bill is being enforced right now. But the main point I want to note is this: I would really implore both sides on something like that. We fight over agriculture commissioner, fish and wildlife. We fight over that stuff. That's fine. But this, I would really implore my friends on the other side. Kentucky is going hard red, and whether Beshear wins the next election or not, chances are Republicans are going to be governors for a long time in Kentucky. Maybe you disagree, but I think that's probably borne out by the facts. Do you really want a Republican governor or a Democrat governor? Do you really want that Republican governor appointing the entire executive branch commission? I don't think you do. I certainly don't want a Republican governor or a Democrat governor appointing them all. It's a flaw in the system. It's always been a flaw in the system. And what this does is it diversifies those appointments to every person except for the lieutenant governor. And if we want to take one from the governor to give the lieutenant governor, I guess we can do that. But it lets the treasurer get one, attorney general, all of them get one. And whether that's the proper diversification or not, let's have the conversation about that. But surely my friends on the other side don't want, let's say Matt Bevin runs and wins again. They don't want him to be able to just appoint all the members. It's not a good thing. It's very unhealthy. And to the point on it only affects this person, you didn't talk to the person that it affects. This affects 4.5 million persons, not just one. And this diversification, I think, is proper. Maybe we can do it differently, but it should not be all in the governor's hands. This is the group that oversees the governor and his employees, and the Secretary of Agriculture's himself and his employees. So I think this is a proper standard here, but I did want to correct the record on those two things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your brevity. Representative Mentor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And correction appreciated, my friend from Jefferson 33. But I wanted to correct the record on the gentleman from Davie 7. The governor technically has 5 appointments on the board. I want to make sure I'm right about this. Has 5 appointments on the board, but 2 of those appointments, and this takes it from 5 to 7, but 2 of those appointments are based on names sent by the auditor and the ag commissioner. And my understanding is that each of those constitutional officers sends a list of 3 names, so they get to pick the 3 names, and the governor chooses one from that list of 3. Is that correct?
It is my understanding that the governor did allow input in this and I don't know the number of people, but to his credit, yes, ma'am, he did allow input from that.
So I mean, but it's not even really input. It's that the ag commissioner and the auditor each send 3 names, and the pick has to be one of those 3 names. So that means they have a pick. They have a pick already. The governor can't just say, no, these names are going good, send it back. You have to pick from that list of 3 that you get. So really, the ag commissioner and the auditor do have a pick. They might have a preference that may or may not be the person selected, but they already have picks, right? Just wanted to make sure that's clear on the record.
Representative Upchurch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just some comments. This is the 22nd year that I've served in this General Assembly, and have served with 5 different governors, starting with Paul Patton. And if you look back in Kentucky's history, there's always some nefarious something going on, whether it be true, not true, that is in the papers. And I think a way of life in Kentucky for years, all the way back in 100 years ago, there's always been something, that you can look back in the history, something unethical that's been in the newspapers, whether it was or not, there's always been that shadow. And so when you have, one person making all the appointments that can bring charges against a governor, there's something wrong with that picture. And so I think this is a great piece of legislation, and I'd urge the committee to support it.
And last word, Representative Wheatley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is also just a comment or comments related to this. And we certainly appreciate some of the concepts related to board appointments and how they were made, the ethics, the guardrails. It's just overwhelmingly obvious that this is being done during this current administration by a supermajority on the other side. That's just cannot be helped. And whether you've been here a short time like we have or a long time, these things weren't done previously. And the Legislative Ethics Commission is not appointed by the governor. So should the executive branch commission be appointed by the legislature? And I'm just throwing that out there as there are all kinds of ways that boards are named and who gets appointed them. And we know in our history and through some constitutional amendments that were passed that the powers have been, the balance of power has been shifted. And part of that shift has given the governor, and some of our own statutory work has given the governor more authority since the 70s, I'll say, to appoint these boards. He is the executive. He is the chief executive. And I believe he should have those powers. And I'm a pretty strong legislative power person, I would say. And another thing to recognize is something my friend from Franklin here said yesterday on the floor. These things are going to change and could change very, very easily if there is a new governor elected in 2023 or 2027 or whenever, because we can do that by statute. We haven't done this in the past, but we want to do it now, and we seem to want to do it now again and again and again. And you can see our viewpoint from that point of view. Thank you.
Seeing no other people asking for recognition, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Bratcher,
Yes.
Representative Decker,
Yes.
Representative Duplessis, Representative Flood,
No to this political maneuvering.
Representative Graham,
No.
Representative Heath,
Yes.
Representative Heverin,
Yes.
Representative Johnson,
Yes.
Representative Maddox,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Briefly explain my vote.
Please.
It's a no today because this is a separation of powers issue. It's another power grab from the executive branch. I did want to correct the record that it's Attorney General and Auditor who put people on. And it's just simply not true to say that the governor picks all 5 people. I mean, that's just not a valid premise. The list come from the AG and the auditor, so they each get a pick on the board. The governor picks the majority, but under the concept of separation of powers, that's a valid thing to do. Serious constitutional problems.
Representative Nemes,
Briefly explain, Mr. Chairman, very briefly.
Please.
I don't see that provision that my friend, the Lady of Warren, I'm reading the statute as it exists today, and I don't see that it's required that the Attorney General or Auditor submit the names to them. It might be somewhere else in the statute. I think it's done by practice, but it's not done by law. I could be wrong, but I don't see it.
Just an explanation of vote.
It is, but I'm voting yes. If I had seen that, maybe I'd reconsider. I want to look for that afterwards, so I'm voting yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Smith,
Yes.
Representative Stevenson,
Please.
Briefly explain my vote. I'm voting no, and I'm always concerned about when we start using our legislative powers to harm another branch. And when we had a governor in there, just Bevin, since he said his name, and he did all manners of things that didn't work. We didn't do this. We allowed him to keep all of his powers. And so now to start worrying about the appearance at this time is troubling.
Representative Tate,
Yes.
Representative Tipton,
May I briefly explain my vote, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
I'm going to vote yes on this. And like my friend, Representative Nemes, I'm reading the statute, KRS 11A.060. There is no mention whatsoever in the statute of any other executive branch office having any input, anything in the process. It strictly says the governor shall appoint 5 as existing statute. And people forget, all of our constitutional officers elected by the people across the state are members of the executive branch. This is about executive branch ethics, so I vote yes. Thank you.
Representative Upchurch,
Yes.
Representative Wheatley,
No.
Representative Miller.
Yes. And matter passes with favorable expression. Same too shall pass on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And our final matter before us today is House Resolution 77, sponsored by Representative Prunty. The floor is yours, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I am State Representative Melinda Gibbons Prunty. I represent the 15th District in Western Kentucky. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you today House Resolution 77, a simple resolution that supports federal action in mitigating cyber attacks and ransomware demands, and it urges the United States Congress to take appropriate measures sufficient to protect the Commonwealth of Kentucky from cyber attacks.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion and a second on the bill. Are there any questions, or would you like to say anything more?
A young man, a student at Purdue University, a constituent of mine who's studying cyber security, brought this issue to me, and I just wanted to put that out there.
That's quite all right. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Bowling, Representative Retcher,
Yes.
Representative Decker,
Yes.
Representative Duplessis, Representative Flood, Representative Graham, Representative Heath,
Yes.
Representative Heverin, Representative Johnson,
Yes.
Representative Maddox,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Nemus,
Yes.
Representative Smith, Representative Stevenson,
Yes.
Representative Tate, Representative Tipton,
Yes.
Representative Upchurch,
Yes.
Representative Wheatley,
Yes.
Representative Miller.
Yes. Matter passes with favorable expression. Same too shall pass on the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and
Representative
members.
Prunty.
Thank you.
If there are no more matters to come before the body without exception, we are adjourned.
Pratt's bill?
Not here in Pratt's bill. There's another bill on the agenda.